Good morning. Welcome to the Leveraging Automation in DISA session. My name is Josh Renke from Mantech, and we are pleased to host this session. Automation has proven advantages in many arenas, industry, and the department. DISA is taking on the mantle to further promote information capabilities within the services we provide. The panel represents the four major centers within DISA and how we are collaborating to provide focused strategy for single but not singular vision. Our moderator is Sajil Ahmed. He serves as the Vice Director, Joint Service Provider, DISA. Ahmed is responsible for day-to-day information technology operations supporting the Office of Secretary of Defense, the Joint Staff Headquarters, Department of the Army, and all other Department of Defense component offices within the National Capital Region. Ahmed oversees the daily IT operations and defense managing an infrastructure and portfolio valued at over $1 billion. His staff of more than 2,500 personnel provide IT consolidation, savings, organizational, and cyberspace security requirements as directed by the Deputy Secretary of Defense. I'll go ahead and turn over the session. And thank you.
All right, Josh, thank you. Good morning, all. Hey, hopefully you're enjoying the symposium sessions so far. And welcome to this panel. So we have about an hour or so. I want to make sure that we are making this interactive. Okay, so session, we have a good panel. Okay, as you know, that automation has increased productivity in many aspects, many areas, both on the personal side and on the business side. A number of examples of automation. Okay, on the personal side, for example, okay, as simple as the robo vacuums at homes. Some of the homes has it. We don't even think about that now, but that's automation. Okay, it's a routine. We work through it. Okay, on the business side, cybersecurity, banking, hospitals. Okay, any one of those areas, they all have automation, artificial intelligence, okay, machine learning built into it for every aspect of what we do. When you walk around on almost every booth, okay, you'll see something about automation. Like every one of the vendors has doing something on automation, which is great. I think that's what we want to see. Okay, that's what we'll talk about more with the panel over here. Okay, and just for all the vendors over here, and what you're doing, the building with your services, okay, and your products itself. Okay, when you are responding to any of the RFIs, RFPs, okay, any of that information, please consider integrating automation into your responses, to integrate automation in to enhance the mission. Okay, not doing automation just for the sake of automation, but actually integrating it to enhance the mission. Okay, that's what we would be looking at. That's what we are doing. Okay, just recently, okay, the DISA director talked about the technology-related priorities. Okay, one of the areas he talked about is the automation piece. Okay, transforming legacy applications, expanding the use of automation and orchestration across all the DISA services we provide. And as you know, DISA as a service provider goes all the way end to end, from providing the backbone, command and control, all the way to the end systems itself. And we are looking at integrating automation, enhancing the processes to make sure that we are optimizing everything we have. Okay? We have a great panel over here to help us talk about automation. Okay? And let me introduce the panel members to you. So let me start out with Mr. Jason Martin. He's the Director of Digital Capabilities and Security Center. He's also the Chief Acquisition Officer, the executive for DISA. So basically, Jason has a big picture for DISA. Okay? He gets to see from the programs, from what's being done across DISA. So Jason is a big picture guy. Okay. Next is Mr. Raj Shah. Okay, he's the Director of Enterprise Engineering and Governance Directorate. Okay. So he is our main troubleshooter, along with number of things in making sure that the operational engineering and the operations of the DISA are optimized, the performance is being done properly in the number of areas. So really key for all of our DISA operations. Next is Mr. Steve Wallace. Okay. Steve is our Director of Emerging Technology Directorate. So Steve is a big thinker. Right? His brain is running 1,000 miles per hour all the time. Okay.
I was just daydreaming about something there.
See, you just never know with Steve. He's always looking forward, trying to figure out, okay, what's next. Okay, what's always needs to be, okay, we need to insert. So which is always great. So we have a big thinker, we have a big picture. Okay, we have our operational engineering, and then last but not the least, okay, Mr. Matt Sentner. Okay, who's there? So Matt is representing our infrastructure directorate, but Matt is the project manager for software-defined networking, and his network change and control management lead. Well, with Matt, basically, these folks over here, when they are talking about all the big picture stuff, big thinking, Matt is the one who has to implement those things.
Sorry,
right?
Matt.
So he gets to implement and make it work.
I got my challenges.
So he's one of the key guys for us, just to make sure that things are working in implementation and on operations. Okay. So we'll begin the session with a few questions. So I have a couple of questions I'm going to ask the panel members so they could talk about in their areas. And then after that, we'll open up to you all to ask any questions you have for the panel. Okay, let's make it interactive. Don't be shy. Hey, they love tough questions. Just want to tell you. Hey, so let's get going. Ready?
Ready.
Let's do it.
All right. So the first question is for Mr. Martin. Okay. So for DISA, what is the importance of automation, and why is DISA taking such importance to the effort?
Great question. And for those of you that know what a component acquisition executive is, our shop is absolutely responsible for ensuring that we are operating at the optimal or most optimal level from all acquisitions across the agency. So, so Gio set me up a little bit with the big thinker comment, but it is true. So when you think about every dollar that DISA spends, it is all done with some semblance of acquisition wrapped around it. So when you have a budget as large as ours, which I think on the operating side is between $4 to $5 million or $1 billion, the capabilities that we provide, that's a lot of programs. So organically under me in the digital capabilities and security centers, about 80 programs, and then the other 50 programs are woven throughout the agency. Then we also have a number of lines of accounting that support the agency at large. So when you think about 130 true programs and then hundreds of lines of accounting, and that blows up to a very large number, that takes a lot of due diligence, a lot of governance, a lot of oversight to make sure that we are paying or we are doing what we need to do for fiscal responsibility and truly getting capabilities out to the warfighter at a most optimal and tax-conscious level. Right? Obviously, we care about the taxpayer. We ourselves are taxpayers, and if we aren't doing our jobs of providing that most efficient and optimal set of capabilities, we aren't truly doing our jobs. So first and foremost, big picture, that's our objective. What we've seen grow up in DISA over the past 61 years now, DISA has been around for 61 years, is a number of siloed capabilities, a number of things that needed to be done real time and that needed to be done for a given emergency or a warfighter or a capability that simply had to be out there or simply to evolve technology. Well, the way we've been built up over the years, it hasn't lended itself to widespread collaboration, widespread optimization, cross-functional thinking, and really what is the best way to do something. Also, as you likely know, we're typically asked to do something the next day or yesterday, right? That doesn't typically lead to optimized solutions. What DISA has embraced, certainly in the past to a degree, but more so now being directly called out in the strategic plan, but then also we formally have made automation a cross-functional capability set across the agency, and it's led by Mr. Shaw and his organization. But really the intent there is to look cross-portfolio, across the entire acquisition space, and across all lines of accounting to ensure we really understand what is being done at the data layer, application layer, network, various network layers to say, do we see overlap? Do we see things that we could do slightly differently? It's about time to invest in that. So not only have we signed out a memo to create a formal program in this space, we've also allocated funds to do so. Now, programs obviously in other lines of accounting or business areas will need to allocate funds as well, but they really need to strategically think back to what does that mean to our bottom line, what does that mean to delivering capabilities, and what does it mean to delivering capabilities faster?
Right. Thanks, Jason. Anyone else on the panel wants to add anything to this?
Well, if I add to it, it's probably going to take away from my own remarks. But at the risk of me giving you a yes answer later,
Okay.
I'll go ahead and I'll add on it. And culturally, frankly, we've struggled over the years from a programmatic perspective with the willingness to make that investment up front, right? People hear automation and they want it the instant payoff. The thing that we are working to drive culturally is that you have to take that investment up front, which might mean a little slower initial delivery as you work through to automate those processes and those capabilities. But the payoff on the back end is far, far greater. So that's I think that's one of the places where we've seen a pretty heavy shift. The other side, I guess I'll stay on the cultural thing for a minute, is a reluctance to automate. I remember having a conversation with one of our Linux system admins years ago that, well, if you automate these things, when it goes bad, it's going to go really, really bad. And I said, yep. That's why you test the living heck out of it before you go and you push the button. But the reality is when it goes, likely it will go well, right? But you can look out and you can see where automation has gone bad for the Amazons of the world and the Microsofts of the world and that kind of stuff. It will happen. The best thing that you can do is practice, test, and then eventually deploy. And the more exercise you get at that, obviously the better it's going to be. So I just wanted to kind of pile on there because I felt like it kind of went with all your excellent points.
All right. Thanks, Steve. So I'll go back to you for the next question also. Since you spoke up.
Okay.
No, not yet. All
Okay.
right. All right. So can you explain the importance of categorizing and prioritizing automation within our services and programs?
Yeah, so along that line of being the willingness to prioritize and take that hit up front for that time to automate, but the more often that we do it, the faster we'll get about it, the better we will be with it. It has to be a priority for the programs. It can't be wouldn't it be cool if, right? Like it's not a wouldn't it be cool if, it's a we must do this. The other side though, and kind of Jason's initial point was a lot of times we get asked to do things rapidly, right? You got to get this out right now, which oftentimes doesn't lend itself to maybe the full end-to-end automation, but maybe we can automate portions of that. And while we have to step back and look as we go to deploy a capability. Am I going to do this once, or is this going to be a repeated process? There's very little sense in obviously automating something that you're just going to do once or once in a very great while. So I think that kind of comes into that prioritization. And it's the other side too, that the agency has made a fairly significant investment in terms of time and more in money as we're growing. A lot of times when we talk about automation, we're really focused on the back office IT automation that we're going to automate the deployment of systems and maintenance and ops and that type of thing. But it's really some of the back office or the front office tasks, if you will, that we are trying to work through now through the use of RPA. Significantly more use of RPA within the agency than we had just a year ago, and we're finding ways. It's been interesting to watch the light bulb go off for folks as they look at some existing processes and they say, well, if we could use RPA like X, the agency is actually about to launch. We're on the verge of launching an internship program. I guess it is an internship program within the agency itself to actually create citizen developers on the RPA front, to bring folks in. Identify the area within your organization that you are looking to automate via RPA. Let's bring them into our team where we will get you trained up. You'll meet other people doing the same things. You'll work your automation effort. And then at the end of your rotation, that's what I should have used, rotation versus internship. At the end of your rotation, you go back into the agency to sort of be that zealot, if you will, that continues to push the capability and organically grow it within the org. So.
All right, thanks, Steve.
Sure.
Any panel members have any more thoughts on that?
Yes, okay. So to Steve's point about rotations, and this really doesn't directly impact industry, but it's an interesting point that you all will need to know as you engage with this in the future. We're doing a number of, I would say, development opportunities that are new and different in the agency, and we're also trying to attract new and different talent to fundamentally change the culture that Steve talked about, right? And that I talked about from the onset. So we've got a number of developmental programs that we're rolling out, internships, rotations, et cetera. So as you do engage with DISA, think about that, right? We do need new ideas. We do need new blood. We do need a different way of thinking, just simply to get us to that next level that we're really trying to get to and to fall in line with the strategic plan. So as you hear more things about developmental opportunities, that doesn't mean industry should not develop and think and provide that insight to us as well. You all have developmental programs, right? You all know how to develop and attract talent. The government, and certainly DISA, has been challenged by that over the years, but we have a renewed interest with various organizations we've set up with, I would say, introspective looking as well. But those are things also that we're interested in ideas on, and that certainly comes with that automation, that new mindset that we simply have to adopt and roll out across the cultural scheme within the agency.
So add that further, right? In acquisition, you will see as new folks are coming in, you will see more and more automation and ideas would be there as a part of the requirements. So I want you guys to also take a note on this, that you see more and more those in RFP and RFI. Please make sure you are addressing that separately so that makes our life easy and your life easy too. That what you are proposing, does that make sense? What is the sustainment cost? How can we really stretch the dollar that we have today for DISA really further and deliver more capability? That's all it's about.
All right, thank you. All right, Mrs. Sander. Okay, next question for you.
Okay.
Okay, so as you have been listening to our three panelists over here talk about the automation piece, okay, from your implementation and from your experience, okay, what do you see as the advantages of automating?
Okay, so the first one we want to target is the one probably closest to everybody's mind, which is cost. The more you automate, you can reduce costs. But at the same token, you have to realize where automation is in the industry today. You have to make sure that your cost compared to your ROI is comparable. Can you hear me? Okay. So when you look at the cost reduction, you have to make sure that it fits, your strategy, your game plan. The other thing too is with automation, you can reduce personnel. At the end scope, you want to reduce as much manpower as possible. However, you also want to take into consideration what to do with the manpower that you have in place today, and can you reallocate those expertise to a different area. Right now, automation and AI has to get its level up to be able to handle those complex issues. And so if we can get rid of the mundane tasks, another advantage, and free up the tasks from these personnel, you can put them towards more complex taskings and be able to think through the decisions that need to be made and fixing of the errors in the criteria. Next thing, error reduction. Right now, I have seen on the networks that through the deployments that if you're doing it manually, not everybody might do it the same exact way. So then when you actually go to the deployment activity, the next thing that happens is you get conflicts. Okay, so with automation, you can deploy and you can configure your networks, your circuits, your workflows through a standard template, so it's design once, deploy many type strategy. Okay. Next thing is customer awareness. Okay, that's always a big one. The customer always wants to know, where's my service, where's my deployment, how are things going. If you automate it, well, then you don't have to have personnel in between the network deployments and the customer. The customer can go right into an application and pull up, see what's going on with their requirements. They can get analysis even on their networks. Okay, that takes us to the next advantage for the automation. And that is you can auto-detect out of the network. You can bring up analysis, performance data. At the same time, through the automation, you can also auto-correct. So if you have an issue pop up, you have your standards, your templates in place, then through automation, if an error comes up, through a standard set of taskings for troubleshooting, the network could essentially repair that error. No manual intervention. Okay? Productivity then at that point starts going up. You don't have to spend recycles on personnel going through and fixing something that should have been done up front through standards, through deployments. So your productivity starts going up. The next thing is you start getting services faster to the customer. Through the automation, the software, the network, it can detect availability. Next thing you know, circuits, requirements, services, they come online. Performance analysis, covered that slightly. Through automation, and you can get more data sharing, machine to machine, as was mentioned earlier. Communications, no more do you have to collect it, file it, and then have somebody move the data. It could all start happening in real time. Next thing I touched on is standardization, the template deployments, faster deployments. It's not just so much it's the same. You can get to the point to where maybe you can get rid of some pre-config activities and put the equipment out on the network, and through automation, network discovers, software discovers, and then it pushes a configuration. So you got a lot more real-time work activities. That takes me to my last point, which is software-defined networking, network function virtualization, orchestration activities. Through software, the software will control your network. Back in the day, and even today, we have activities to where personnel have to get in and do the deployments, do the changes, do the manipulation. Through software-defined networking, you can have everything again templated, and then the software-defined capabilities through your orchestration handles all the workflows, and it makes the upfront decisions for you, and then it does the deployment. So when a customer comes in, triggers an order, that order is then dissected into its components. Those components are fed to the appropriate orchestration areas. The workflow is generated. Next thing, It's provided down to the network, and through instructions provided, then the network configures and services get turned up. Then an automation notification goes out to the customer. We don't have to call them. Send something out to them. How everybody gets notices nowadays through texting. Okay, one of the areas that we could probably take more advantage of. Send out that notice. Get rid of email. Okay. So the next thing is the network function virtualization. We have to get our network synchronized. We have to get our network talking, and we have to have the configurations standard. Through network function virtualization, it'll help all that communication. It'll help all the equipment talk, the network function properly. That's all I have.
All right, Matt, thank you. Any panelists? Anyone want to add anything?
Yeah, so I want to add that further. This is just the network component of automation. If you look at that overall, and it's good for DISA because we sell the services, and I have a bunch of partners here from our hack team, right? Our ecosystem and install base has remained the same in DoD. I know workload has moved probably from data center to cloud because push to cloud. So we are in a totally different environment. And now when you are in a hybrid environment, your half data stays here, half data stays there. Automation is more than ever important for DISA, to be honest, to make sure that we compete and able to provide seamless services to the technical edge to our mission partners. So whether it's network automation, whether it's workload automation, all automation is a huge subject, but this is more than ever important for us to do it. That's kind of the main point I wanted you guys to understand.
Right. Thanks, Raj. So we talked about some of the advantages of automation. As some of us might have experienced, sometimes too much automation could cause issues also. Right? It's simple one. Just a couple of days back, just trying to call my gas company, and I've been just going through ping pong through press 1, press 3, press 4. Okay, I'm sure from the company perspective, they did all the processes right. They were all great, saying they automated every single thing. I can't get to a live person to actually get the work done. Right? So that's the user experience piece of it, which we have to take a look at also. It's sometimes just too much automation could cause issues. Right? So there are risks associated with that. So next question to Mr. Shah to talk about the risk associated with automation and what is DISA doing to mitigate those risks.
So I can answer in a one word. Not to do automation is the biggest risk, right? No, I'm not going to do that. But no, so we have done, if you look at that presidential executive order, really concentrating on customer experience. And that customer experience has human-centric, data-driven automation is a big part of it. Because the only way you can improve end-user customer experience is through having automation, doing proactive performance monitoring, and giving users the data that they need. Another couple of things that we have done specifically on our network sides and our internet access point side, and there are a lot of lessons learned we have so far from doing that automation, and there is more which is in the pipeline. And I will tell you, first and foremost, and very important, is define the success criteria. Because as I stated, automation is huge. You want to figure it out, what is your success criteria is. You want to start small because early wins matter. If you start big, you can't chew that entire elephant at once, right? You want to start small, get early wins, get people on board. That also addresses a cultural issue that Steve talked about. Another thing we keep saying, we have enough workload, right? So communication is another big key, right? People are worried about their jobs, contractors are worried about their jobs and other things. So communication is a very, very important thing. Out of that, like small and tangible, another important things that we don't want to ever overlook is there is no easy button. It's gonna take some time, and we need to be patient with the people and including the contracting staff, to make sure that we have a right timeline adjusted to that. Another thing I've seen a lot in our lesson learned is scalability, integration, and dependency issue. Those three are very, very important. You have a vendor product A, everybody wants to sell us their nice, shiny, new tool, right? How can I take an advantage of our existing ecosystem footprint of the tool set and maximize the use of them and make sure they all integrate well with, I know our authentication is different than other people. We are fixing the ICAMs. There are a lot of things coming in a pipeline. But how that fits well together and integrate, because those are the issues that we have seen. We spend a lot of time early on when we are trying to automate a lot of those functions, specifically taking performance management data, making sure we can move the workload so user experience is good, or create it automatically ticket. And we found those are some of the areas where we really, really need to pay extra attention. Another thing, automation is not free. We are constantly changing, right? So there is a life cycle cost associated with also with those automation. You have to modernize those automation tool sets also, or those macros that you have written up as small as that. So that's another area I want people to pay extra attention. This is what we learned so far, right? As we are starting here, a journey, I think I call it. But if you want to act with a velocity of action, you gotta start somewhere. And I think we have done a great job in early wins, but we want to continue that, whether it's a data center workload, whether it's a network automation, whether it's cybersecurity, looking at the compliance data. Don't forget your compliance. We don't want unintended bots. That is another issue that we saw early on, and how we can control that environment. So those are a couple of lessons learned that I also want you guys to be aware of. So you guys make sure that those are all you are tackling in when you are also proposing the government what automation looks like. Anything else?
So I'm going to follow on with what Raj said based on the human factor. So I will tell you one thing that automation is absolutely not a risk, or that's not a risk associated with automation, and that is people losing jobs or contractors losing work or us losing work. All that does, the additional automation and the large strategic capabilities that we bake in from the onset brings more work to us. You think about what DISA's brand and reputation was 10 years ago, fundamentally different than what it is now. And it's because we have proven that we can truly deliver at scale for the department, and we've done it time and time again. This initiative, which is exactly, we talked about, we've invested in, is to do that and then some. Right? There is no shortage of work coming into the agency. I promise you that. I can also promise you that people aren't going away as a result of these initiatives. It just brings more and more in. So anything you can truly do to help us to think along the same lines and to really be a positive contributor to what we're trying to do is absolutely appreciated, not only by us, but by the department, and in the end, our customer, which is truly the warfighter.
Yeah. I think the alternative is an 8-day work week. So I think we definitely, we are ripe to help us change, and I'd say towards industry, but we need and we've said it in a lot of other forums here today. We also need your help, not just to the raw automation, but to help us get our hands around processes and that kind of thing. Because one of the time and time again, either internally or case studies, the worst thing we can do is try to automate poor process. So a lot of our business processes are also going to have to change as well. So I'll leave that there.
Yep.
Right.
And thanks, Steve, for that. And on that note, right, we want to make sure that we are counting your contribution, and we can take our agency at the next level to help out our warfighters. But you will see automation coming more and more in each and every contracts, every acquisition. Mr. Marty can assist right here. He's the CAE head here for the agency. And I can tell you that, as he stated, we need to reduce really an errors. Because whenever there is a human, there is a lot of error. We are prone to errors. We have bad days. Things happen. Fat finger always happens. And Murphy is going to outlaw us. There would be issue with the risk, right? When I cross the street here in Baltimore, right, there is a risk. but those risks are way minimum than not to do automation. So we are all committed, we are all right with you, and a lot of partners here who helped me to have been this journey, and we want to go further.
All right, thank you. So I guess what I'm hearing is you don't want to take the bad processes, automate that so we could get the stuff much faster, the bad stuff.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, thanks. All right, so let's see what questions you all have for the panel. Okay, so let's open that up, and then I'll get back to a couple of more questions. But I think before that, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. There's a microphone. Josh, you have it. So just hold on 1 second, please. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Chuck Reynolds with TSI. Thank you for answering pretty much all of my questions in the first several questions, so great job, guys. Is there any interest in going out to industry and visiting the Verizons and the Ciscos and the Junipers and taking a look at those processes? Practicing story and agile types of approaches to automation. Is there interest in bringing you guys into those accounts?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so prior to COVID, we were making a number of those visits. We visited a couple of the telcos specifically to see how they were doing. Really, that was around operations automation. But sure, I mean, we're open to hear, and we want to hear the transformation story, not like, hey, look at this pretty dashboard with all these automations. Awesome, cool. Tell us how you fixed the culture. Tell us about the journey. And let's try to figure out those analogs along the way. Because just showing us a dashboard, awesome, but it's a bunch of blinky lights at the end of the day.
Nice PowerPoint.
Let me add on to, you heard the boss talk about it yesterday. We break everybody with scale, right? I love the fact that there's so many people. What do you say, 4,000 people here this week, which is incredible. We host a number of sessions as well internally. So these two gentlemen host tech sessions. Is it monthly? They're kind of lunch and learn type deals.
Oh, yeah.
And then we host brown bag sessions that General Skinner and myself and a few of the other center chiefs attend and provide information to. I think it's focused on small business. One thing that will really help industry and also helps us is for you to do your research. Right? It's not a fair fight, right? You've got one agency and there's how many industry partners, right? There's a lot. I promise you, I don't know what all of you do and what your niche market piece is, but if you can relate to us within the department, within our own agency, and then where you fit into the space, that goes a long way. So to the point about, PowerPoint charts or whatever the case may be, but if you know and truly understand DISA's mission and the various parts of what DISA is, where we fit into the grand scheme of things, that's very helpful. Right? I promise you, these gentlemen are all smarter than I. It takes me a little longer to kind of put the pieces together. So any work that you can do from the beginning to kind of ramp up, and as you think about partnering with us or inviting us to sessions or coming into the building, please just think about that from that perspective. It is very challenging for us as well to kind of link those pieces together, and we don't understand all the agreements that are out in industry either. But anything you can do as preemptive work, I think, would be very beneficial to the overall experience and relationship with the agency.
And if I can add as well, from the ground level deployment aspect of it, anytime we can get insight on processes, then discussions, collaboration through that, it's beneficial. And the reason why is Raj said earlier, is implementing a bad process is not automation. Okay, it's really just going to make things even worse because your technologies are designed to essentially work a certain way. You got to take advantage of that. And so collaborating with industry who's actually already walked through some of these pain points, we would love to get insight on that because we have to get our processes in place first before you start throwing it out on the networks and putting it in production.
Right, thank you. Just want to add quickly to that point. Okay, all good points. Okay, always think about the customer. Always think about the user at the end. You all have customers. We have customers. right? So anything we do with the processes, anything we do with automation, it all needs to make sure that it's enhancing our mission, it's enhancing the user experience, right? So that's something we just have to keep looking at. So thanks, Josh.
Hey, good morning. Todd Martin with AT&T. You mentioned your focus has been around automating back office in the past, and you're starting to look at front office automation. How would you prioritize that, or do you have a time frame in mind of when you want to start doing that? Do you categorize it as a 50-50 split, or how would you categorize the two initiatives or prioritize those initiatives? Thank you.
So I don't know about a 50-50 split. I would say they're both vitally important, right? But they serve different audiences at the end of the day, right? So a lot of the initial work was around that back office, but in the last year or so, and frankly, I got to give credit to our CFO's office even before that. For the last 3 years, they've been working RPA. But really, the front office has started to be a concentration of a different group within the agency within that same period. So I don't think that I would prioritize one over the other. I mean, frankly, they're all important, and if you ask our bosses, the answer is they want it tomorrow. So or yesterday. So I don't think that I would give you necessarily a breakdown, but I would say that different parts of the agency are working that, and they frankly all come back and center around our team and Raj's group that's trying to orchestrate that across the agency.
And let me tell you, as an agency automation lead, as an agency automation lead, I want automation to start everywhere, right? Because I want to see wheels. Because if one wheel is going ahead, we are not going to make a progress. We want to make sure that all wheels are going in the same direction and going. And Mr. Martin is going to talk about how agency as an overall. So we are looking at total cost of ownership if there is a competing priorities, just so that helps.
So yeah, I think that's all fair. One of the things that's really driving us, and the boss talked about it. The boss talked about it a little bit yesterday. Is we continue. We also definitely talked about it in the fall at AFCEA last October. Are we investing where we need to, right? And are we investing against documented requirements and funded requirements? So what's happening behind the scenes that you all don't see, you'll see the fruits of that later, and the programs are now. We're doing very detailed zero-based reviews on all programs across the agency, and I alluded to it earlier. As we identify areas that need additional dollars or need additional help or are not running in an optimal fashion, that's where we're going to start prioritizing. So the other thing we've done is look at where the majority of the dollars are being spent and identifying what's being done well in those areas and what's not, and what we can do better, I would say. So there is a definite focus on where we're spending our dollars and are we spending them in the best way possible. These guys here are with me every Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning at 8 o'clock. It's a really good time to go through.
It's a blast.
It's a blast. And but it's actually been really eye-opening, I would say, and it really does help us have informed opinions and strategic visions, and then it helps us really lay into the roadmaps what needs to be there that isn't really there right now. And then it's an area of efficiency. And so, again, kudos to CFO for thinking proactively. They haven't really gone through the spas. They're the money people, right? They've already thought about this. In general, program managers just take money, right? I'm one of them. I know how this works, right? But bringing everybody from the agency together to really come at this from different angles and different perspectives, I think is help informing that. And I think you'll see some split, but some will be focused internally, but a lot of it will be focused on that capability delivery to the warfighter. Yeah.
Right. Any other panel members? So let me just add one thing to it. I think what you see on the panel over here, which is good, is both the back office and the front office views. Right. So we talked about the both over here. That's not 50-50. We have to work all. My primary stuff is front office. Okay, that's what I do over in the Pentagon. Right. So we are already working the front office stuff also with our industry partners to as simple as onboarding personnel, creating accounts. I mean, things like that we could start to automate more and more and make sure the processes are optimized to go with that. So I think we're looking at the range of all of the DISA services for automation. Okay, next question.
Hi, Faisal from SecureSoft Technologies. I think Matt sums up a lot of great points about the automations. But one of the things is now we're upgrading, when we look at the network, right, on the campus side, software-defined access is becoming a very common trend. On the WAN side, on the software-defined WAN becomes a very common trend. When we're building a data centers now, software-defined data centers in different types of technology. But how do you bridge that gap from the culture, from the people who are working the last 20 years, who are not ready to see all these, because we're purchasing all this heavy, expensive analytics and all these tools, but the teams are not ready. And so we are still buying these technology, we're still implementing it in more of a network-centric approach as opposed to more of a software-defined. So how do you bridge that gap right now in this current, and what is the strategy around training and making those peoples to come up to the new understanding of how the new network should be built?
Okay, so hopefully I heard that question correctly. So you're asking about bridging the gap of essentially taking the technologies we have today and moving it into this automation arena. Okay, so it goes back to what Raj and Mr. Wallace was actually saying earlier, which is the fact we have to take it slowly. There was an attempt early on that I was involved in, but it didn't work. Why? Because we tried to bite off too much all at once. And so to bridge the gap, we have to start working bit by bit, methodically, and again, going back to that cost advantage aspect to where you have to realize the return of investment of what you're actually working on. Okay, so it's a combination of trying to first get your network in order. You have to have that platform. You have to have that base. So focusing on technologies that involve NFV, okay, getting all the network, and then taking the next layer and then getting your software design, your business processes, as I mentioned earlier. You got to have those ironed out, templated, so you're not implementing something that's incorrect. Okay, the director is highly against implementing things that just don't work. And so we need to look at that. That's where the collaboration aspect comes in earlier. And so it's bringing groups together for that understanding, to bridge that gap, as well as starting at the fundamental layers and then just adding on additionally as we go forward, making sure that we're leveraging the best out there in order to get everything working. It's like right now, if we focus on one area that's not really mature, maybe we can go ahead and hold off on that area, focus on another, get that taken care of, and then start adding. It's kind of like putting Legos together.
So add that further, right? Early wins matter. That's the reason I talked about tangible results. Early wins. How can we achieve success early? That's going to bring people on board. When they see the results, that there is a good result, there is a customer experience improvement, they will come on board, and that's going to change the culture. Otherwise, we are going to be the same day talking about the same thing 10 years down the road.
So I'm going to go back. So, we talked about front office. Sajil, as you all know, runs a very important mission down at the Pentagon, which has a very demanding customer base, I would say, across the entire department. Smidge. Some of my customers are in the room as well, so I want to give a special call out to DFAS for being in here, but I also want to use it to talk about culture. We've talked about back office, front office as an agency at every layer of the network, right? Everything we do. That also, when we talk about the end user, the warfighter, customer experience, end user experience, which are presidential directives, right? Things we need to think about. We hand in hand with our customers, our mission partners, like DFAS is one of them. Think about all the back office automation we're doing, the front office, how then that conveys also or interoperates or engages our customer base. We do that on a daily basis from an application hosting perspective. Please don't forget, there's a full life cycle, whether it's a DISA program, a DFAS program, pick your favorite component program, that we work together. So when you're thinking about proposals, you're thinking about automation, you're thinking about what you can offer DISA, it's really what can you offer the department and all the touch points we have. Don't forget, we do have those relationships as well, and we're more than happy to hear, learn, and listen from one another to make sure that that true end-to-end end-user experience is what it needs to be.
All right, good, thank you. Next question. Okay.
Hi, good morning. Ellen Severson from DFAS. So this goes back to a question, Mr. Wallace, or a comment you said, sir. You mentioned citizen developers for RPA. How do you ensure that when they go back to the mission area or organization that they're then going to develop, that they are not putting out unauthorized IT or not following the controls that your organization may have set? How do you handle that?
Might be a better question asked about this time next year, but that's an absolutely valid question. The RPA platform will provide some set of guardrails just to begin with, right? So they'll have to. Really, at the end of the day, RPA is just a bot interacting with the machine. Unattended bots start to get pretty interesting and start to kind of move into that space that I think you're pointing to. And we are, frankly, wrestling with the unattended problem, as we speak. So I don't have a solid answer for you. It is definitely, part of it is, how do we stop users generally from doing bad things to begin with, right? But the other side is starting to create some level of uniformity around the agency. That's why we're trying to do this via the this citizen developer program versus saying, okay, organizations, here's the RPA platform, go have a good time, right? If we try to bring them in centrally, build a sense of community and something that cross-cuts around the agency, hopefully we can create some standardization there and some consistency there with the way that we leverage it. But I would just think that a lot of the other controls that we have in place will help us, but I think there's some lessons that we're going to need to work through, kind of to your point, Raj.
So on that note, what we have done with our 4 partners, right, and some of the bots that we have done for our key applications, we kind of walk towards the zero trust principle there by putting them access control, particular VLAN line, so kind of controlling their movement at the moment and watching it, to be honest, more closely than what we normally watch, and trying to listen, learn that how they are behaving or misbehaving or not behaving, and looking at it and designing the control towards that. And those are the all controls plan is to use as a part of a zero trust and Thunderdome principle. So you will see this, that how this entire automation thing and how DISA is thinking differently, that those listen learn are getting implemented into the zero trust, also getting implemented into automation strategy. So we have done a couple of those, and that's the reason I said uncontrolled bots can be an issue, and we have seen the behavior, and we have put some mitigation and controls on that. We say that there is a risk, right? And that's what we are watching right now.
Okay, next question.
Kurt Phillips with Red Hat. So, there are a lot of great technologies out there to enable automation, but really want to dig into how do you promote the culture that's required to really embrace automation, right? Because the builders and operators, have their standard ways in which they've done things in the past, and sometimes automation becomes difficult when you're first implementing it. How do you keep them from reverting back to their old ways, and change that just overall culture and the mindset of your builders and operators, right?
Very good question. So I will tell you, it's all about seeing about 20%, I think Miguel is right there in the back, 20% reduction in a ticket. My people will say about 7% reduction in a problem management ticket. That's where they're seeing the benefit, right? That they are not spending their weekend and nights at work, right? My government oversight as well as contractor partners, you guys are all happy that they are not spending weekend and nights here. That's where they are seeing really tangible. And then seeing customer not getting impacted. Proactively, we saw issues. One of the applications that was hosted in the cloud, we are able to see where the issue is, right, and start working on it. So our ticket count is decreasing, and that's where the real benefit you are see the employee is going to turn around.
So if I can add on to that one too. So the one area where when we talked to our CFO folks as they went through the RPA deployments, and it's the case regardless, but this one was a pretty standout example. They went and they targeted. We talk a lot about the technology, and that's great, but the reality is there's people behind it ultimately, and you're automating some of their processes, and there are some folks that react more willingly than others to that. So they went and targeted those folks that were much more receptive to the idea, and with that, they showed them that, hey, this is possible, this is what it can do for you, all that kind of thing. Those folks that adopted it learned quickly. They ran with it, which then caused others to look back who may have questioned it from the beginning and say, oh, well, wait, I think I can, I want some of that too, right? And that's how I think you can't change the culture without looking at the people and going after those ones that are frankly more flexible than those who aren't.
Right, thank you.
Two questions. Hi. My name is Ravi Rao from Verge Technologies. We provide convergence, cloud convergence, and so our business, we're a veteran-owned business, and we want to give back to the military. And I think that one of the missing pieces of the puzzle is cloud convergence. And I'll give you an example. I used to train the Army, Navy, and Air Force in cybersecurity when I worked for Schlumberger. And one of the issues is that you talk about monitoring, detection, intrusion, but how do you move the data out of harm's way? And that's what we do. And I think that's one of the missing pieces of the puzzle that we can offer to the military. I'd love to talk with one of you guys regarding to that, and paid forward. Thank you.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, you stated that you guys provide the data moving capability. That's what you said. Okay, yeah. So and that's a big thing, right? We have tons of sensors. We are one of the biggest network probably you will ever find. I think Director stated in the morning in his keynote, right, yesterday. It's one of the biggest networks. We have tons of sensors now. We are trying to move towards more of a single sensor strategy. But wherever there is a cyber event, you will correlate the performance, either improvement or degradation. Depends upon how the cyber event happened, right? And so we are taking that data of performance monitoring and really moving towards data-driven decisions. We have done a couple of our instances, and that's where I talked about early wins, and we are seeing already a fruitful results, and which was very, very small effort, very small dollar, and that's where we are trying to move forward. So I appreciate you also helping our services. So I will give an example. Army reached out to me a few days back about performance monitoring. So we are working closely with Navy right now, Fleet Cyber specifically.
Okay, thanks, Raj. I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, John Clayton with Isobar. Question around the user experience. You mentioned the need to define success criteria. From that discussion, are you interested in defining that internally, or are you interested in learning from industry what other types of success criteria are available and can be discovered through other convergence of the total user experience?
Okay. So, I mean, the answer is always going to be yes, right? If we stay very insular, we're probably not going to get where we need to go. So I think the answer in terms of information sharing with industry is vital to our success. So.
Go ahead.
Okay, so for, as you can see an example, we have a lot of customer surveys going out, right? Our 4E&O effort. I just received a survey for my own ticket, right? So we are planning to use that data, to be honest, and figure it out where the issues are. And that's what exactly we learned from industry, to be honest. It's not that we invented ourselves, right? All those survey tools that were set at 35,000 tickets a year, all 35,000 surveys get sent out, and about you can see 5 to 20% return rate, right? Then we looked at how can we learn from industry to have higher return rate, shorter survey, direct questions. So we are using all those avenues and aggregating those data and really making that decision and changing our processes is key. But again, as Steve says, answer is always here. The day I say I know everything, that's my demise, right? So I don't know everything, and I want to learn from you guys.
Yeah, and I'll echo that sentiment. The comment that I would make subsequent to these guys here is, it depends on the application, right, or the end user experience you're talking about. So we'd want to scope it accordingly, because again, we offer services as does the rest of the department, and then we offer a number of services up and down the network. So it depends, but I think across the board, yes. The question is how, where, and what would the scope look like, and then go from there.
All right, thank you. Again, it's about 10 o'clock now, so I just want to thank all of you for attending. I just want to thank the organizers for letting us do this, both AFCEA International and the DISA team who worked hard in the back to make sure that we are able to do this. If you have any more questions or want to talk to one of these gentlemen, especially Mr. Shah, who's the lead for automation for DISA, please visit the DISA Pavilion, which is all the way on the other side. You won't miss it. It's purple. It's big. You'll see it. The staff over there will be happy to talk to you. And then all of us are around, so we'll be happy to talk to you also. Again, thank you for attending. Good session. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks.